Hi, welcome to City Scene with Mayor Mike Cahill. I'm your host, Walt Kosmowski. Your Honor, welcome.
Hey, Walt, good to see you.
Good to see you. And I will tell our viewers that today is August 3rd, 2020, and we're obviously doing this program remotely because of the COVID virus. And speaking of which, I know, Mike, that you attended a school committee meeting late last week where the issue of opening schools or not opening, or how to open schools this fall semester was discussed. Maybe you can bring us up to date on what the current thinking is.
Sure. So we did have a school committee meeting last Thursday evening. We've got another one this coming Thursday. And school committees are being charged with making the decisions as to how schools will reopen in the fall. The state Department of Elementary and Secondary Education tasked school districts with coming up with three models. A model where all the kids come into school every day and learn in person. A model where it's called a hybrid, where you get some kids in each day, recognizing that we may not have the space to keep everybody far enough apart from each other in the total numbers that we would typically have in classrooms. So it's essentially half the kids at a time in person, half the kids learning home online. And then the third model is everybody staying home and learning online. Those are the three scenarios. The state said you need to plan for all three. And then as we get closer to the beginning of the school year, decisions need to get made at each district level as to how to proceed. And right now there's a lot of concern with all three models. I think a lot of people acknowledge that there's no ideal or good scenario for various genuine, legitimate, good faith reasons of concern. And so we're looking at all of it. We're getting a lot of input from people all over the community, all over the state. I'm trying to interact with fellow mayors on it. We've been talking about it, have a couple more meetings set between now and Thursday. I'm also talking with our hospital CEO to see how our numbers are looking on hospital admissions. We get daily numbers from our local public health nurse who pulls them from the state data. So, and what we do know is that here in Beverly and on the North Shore, I think, we've done a good job collectively in that new positive cases are low. They're much lower than they were. Of course, we don't test in anywhere sufficient numbers to really capture all our positive cases, but we have some sense from the new cases that come that are much lower than they were during our peak in April, really. And we also get numbers from the hospital, because I think probably the key metric is to see how many people are getting sick with COVID and sick enough to be hospitalized. And those numbers are way, way down from where they were during our surge in April. So we're trying to manage all that information coming in, and obviously we see different things happening in different parts of the country than here, but we recognize that we surged earlier on. Some parts of the country are surging now. How do we, in a model where we've tried to, I say we collectively, again, it's everybody throughout the state, have tried to reopen our economy and our communities in a very thoughtful, measured way, and are seeing a continued low caseload, but trying to predict that. And how do we try to keep people safe and provide the important education that our kids need? Sorry, that's a long answer, but
yeah. Well, I think that was a very good answer, Mike. Now we know by now, all our citizens know that the homecoming has as it usually is.
Could I give you one more thought on education? I'm sorry to do that.
Sure, Mike. No, you're the mayor.
Sorry, but the decision we're being asked to make by a date certain, and I think we're scheduled for Thursday, and the deadline I think comes over the weekend, to get to the state what our local Beverly Public School District plan will be for reopening. We're required to submit that to the state. But that doesn't mean we stop tracking data, and the state doesn't stop tracking data, because as people who've been paying closer attention know, the state agreed with the teachers unions recently that the school year would only need to be 170 days, not 180 like it usually is. That gives districts, and the teachers will be working and the administrators will be working, but it gives an additional 10 school days, 2 full school weeks to plan for the opening. So now the opening doesn't need to happen until as late as September 14th, whereas it was going to be the last week in August. So it gives everyone a little more time for the planning. But we do need to express our preferred model to the state by, I think it's August 10th. And as I said, we're scheduled to take our vote this coming Thursday evening. So just so people have a sense of the timetables, and nothing's written in stone. If we decide to do Model A and Model B ends up making most sense in another few weeks or a month and a half, we would expect to pivot and change direction and go with a different model.
Yeah, and I think what the whole country, actually the whole world has learned through this COVID epidemic is that things change sometimes so quickly that you make your best guess and set a course one day, and 2 or 3 days later you have to change because of circumstances on the ground. And we all understand that. Now, we know by now that homecoming is not going to be held the normal way it is at Lynch Park. Tell us what can people expect? Can they go to the beaches? Can they go to the parks? What kind of protocols are being is the city asking for people that use those facilities?
Right. Yeah, as you said, well, most of what we're used to during homecoming really can't happen right now. And if you think about it, and I've said this to you before, if you think about it, most of what we try to do together, whether it be city events or privately sponsored events, during the good weather months, is we try to bring a lot of us together in a defined space around food and music and celebration. That's what we all love to do. And so we really can't do that right now is the reality with COVID. So here we sit, and you asked what can people expect. We are, thanks to you and your team and some wonderful musicians, we are now offering Thursday night virtual concerts. Virtual just means that we can't have a crowd, right? And we did the first one outdoors this past Thursday. We had to tape it indoors because of the weather. But people can expect those from 6 to 7:30 p.m. on the next 4 Thursdays in a row. Really take us through the summer, through the end of August. And we're excited to be able to offer that. And I know people appreciate and enjoy that. So that's one piece. You had asked about beaches and parks. Do you want to say anything more on that? Or?
Well, I was just asking whether the city, people certainly want to go to the beach and go to the park during the summer. What sort of protocols is the city expecting people to use when they use these facilities?
Right. So it's as much as you plan, you learn a lot as you go. And so one thing that we've learned and we've tried to implement over the last several weekends, recognizing that there are certain beaches in Beverly that people like to go to, but none of them are big, right? We don't have big, long, mile-long beaches. The beaches we have are modest size, and the tides really matter to how many people can safely be on a beach. So we've using the tide tables and recognizing when high tide comes, we've set some limits on, based on how many square feet and the ability to get, family groups of certain sizes around a blanket or sitting space, but keeping them 12 feet away from the next group, which is what the state guideline requires, ensuring that if people can't be more than 6 feet or more away, that they put on their face coverings and so forth. And recognizing that on those really hot, beautiful beach days, even at Lynch Park, not a lot of people are going in to sit on the lawn. They all want to be right at the water on the sand. So we have set some limits based on the tides. We've counted people walking in earlier in the day, and then we close down those beach spaces. And then we try to, plan for when the tides start going out. We get to mid-tide, we get to a little bit later in the day, people have been there, leave. And we try to just watch people coming off to allow for people to start coming on. It's not a one in, one out, or one out, one in kind of thing, because that's too hard to manage. But we look at the tides, and as I said, a few hours past high tide, when it's coming towards mid, heading towards low, we'll open Rice's Beach back up, for example. As we see more space on the beaches at Lynch, we'll open back up to more cars in the parking lot. Everything's imperfect. We're doing the best we can. We try to keep, reminding people the importance of being thoughtful and caring about each other. And it's a challenge. It is. Most people are really being thoughtful, but not everybody. I've seen it in other communities, and it can be frustrating when most people are trying to do what's going to keep us safest, and they see some who either momentarily forget to be careful or maybe aren't being focused in enough on the importance. And that's something we have to keep trying to promote and work on.
Now, let's talk about things like City Hall and the library and the senior center. If folks need to transact business or go to these locations, tell us the status of those locations right now, Mike.
Right. So right now, those buildings are not open to the public. I can say of necessity, the senior center will probably be the last, because seniors are obviously a very at-risk population to COVID. The library has been doing online reserving of books and being able to pick up curbside. They're working at a couple of other models to get books out of the library in the good weather and in front of people, maybe some tabletop browsing, and then checking out. This is all in advance of opening back up. At City Hall, we are currently working on a model, and we'll have more to say in the coming days, but of trying to staff a help desk outside the front door where people can get questions answered. They can already submit bills and other types of payments and applications and such in a box in the back foyer of the first floor of City Hall. But we're starting to staff a help desk outside the front door. We can get staff to come outside from City Hall if there are questions that need being answered from a specific department, as we are staffed in each department. But we're staffed. We don't have everybody in there. It's not really. We haven't hit that point of being ready to have 3 or 4 or 5 people working in in the same office space. So we're everybody's working, but they're kind of taking shifts in the office versus remotely. So right now we're working on that model. We know that later in the month of August, the city clerk will be required to offer early voting. And the plan is for that early voting to take place in the first floor hallway of City Hall. So right now we're thinking that it may make sense in the wake of that. That'll be a 10-day requirement. And after that's done, that may be the point in time where, again, we're tracking all the data that we start offering the ability for people to come into City Hall. But as some communities are doing, at that point, we may require appointment-only type of interactions that may be for certain needs and not all. There are certain things people absolutely can do by mail and online, and there are other things that are a little more difficult to accomplish that we'll start looking at that model of getting people in the building. So it's all a work in progress, but we'll be continuing to share our information. I think the help desk, being able to look face-to-face and talk with somebody outside the front door, that'll hopefully be helpful to people. We're finding it already is. And as I said, we're gonna continue to track the data around the virus to ensure that we do the right things around that.
Yeah. Now you mentioned voting. Now we received at our home here, we received a register to vote by mail. So we sent those postcards back in. So we will be able to vote by mail for the primary as well as the final of the election in November, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's one option. Another option is to physically come in before Election Day and vote in the early voting option.
And vote. And what's the initial date for that? What's the first date that you can do that?
It's 10 straight days in later part of August. I guess maybe we can get the information. You guys can put it on the screen when you're editing. I don't have it. The clerk's office is responsible for running the elections, including the early voting. And I know they've got the dates and they've got the plans, and it'll be on the city website pretty soon if it isn't already. But hopefully you can also share it out.
Okay. Well, I just made a note to myself that before we'll find out from the city clerk's office, and we'll post that during that. Now, Mike, what are you hearing from local businesses and the Greater Beverly Chamber of Commerce about the impact of COVID on local businesses here in Beverly? How has that affected them?
So as most people are well aware, when we first shut down as a state, most businesses were also shut down, right? There were some deemed essential, and they were kept open, and then it's been a case of reopening. So for the most part, the financial resources to help both individuals and business owners, employees, homeowners, renters, business owners, right across the board, for the most part, that financial help has had to come from the federal government. By constitution, by charter, by constitution, local government and state government have to balance our books each year. The federal government is the only level that's allowed to carry a deficit. So they're the one level of government that's in a position to do just that, to put money on the table to help tide people through. So I say that as to frame. What we've done in Beverly is we've worked with our friends and partners at the Greater Beverly Chamber of Commerce, at Beverly Main Street, directly with business owners as well. And we work to try to make sure that they've had access to those state and federal resources. I know that our legislative delegation, both Representative Paracella, Senator Lovely, our Congressman Moulton, our U.S. senators, they've all worked to make sure that Beverly residents and business owners know all this too. There's been all kinds of outreach and helping to make sure people sign up for, whether it be the payroll protection plan, way back in CARES Act 1 from the federal government and all that. As far as locally, we've worked with our in different phases. We've worked to make sure our businesses have what they need. Our health department, our inspectional services department, but largely our health department has been incredibly busy, have really stepped up in a big way to make sure that our businesses have the approvals they need, understand what they need, and have the approvals they need to open back up safely. And as you know, the local economy has been opening in pieces, in phases,
Right.
As the states allowed. More recently, we're able to work really, really well with our local restaurant community to provide a lot of outdoor dining options. And that's been, I think it's been eye-opening. It's been helpful. And I think a lot of people locally have been great about trying to support those businesses as everybody's trying to, get by during a time that is going to be with us for a while yet.
Well, Mike, I know that I don't have to remind our viewers that even during this COVID, the city hasn't been sitting on its hands. I know that your administration has been very aggressive in terms of fixing and upgrading the infrastructure of our community. And I wanted you to touch upon one aspect of that, and that's the solar array project that's on Route 128 between, exit 19 and 18, right across from the North Shore Music Theater. Maybe you can say a little bit about that. How big is that array, and when will it be operational, and how much electricity will we get from that?
Yeah. Well, first, let me tell you, since you mentioned it, I got to tell you, I have a dear friend, Dick Mooney, longtime Beverly resident, who grew up in Woburn, moved to Beverly as a young man, raised his family here. Dick loves to tell me the story of how when he was 18, 19 years old, he worked on 128. He helped to build 128 with a shovel and working on the highway crews. So 128 only came to Beverly in the, I'm going to get it wrong, but sometime in the 1950s. So it's kind of cool to have a friend who helped to actually, as a laborer, as a young guy, help build it. Since you mentioned 128. And yes, right along 128 North between Brimble Ave and Centerville, the old city landfill is now under construction as a just about 5 megawatt solar farm, right? Solar array farm. And it's we worked hard on that for several years because it's a complex process in Massachusetts, but there are state laws and there are requirements that the power companies, in our case National Grid, participate in these projects. And the developer, in this case Blue Wave Solar, is paying the city for 20 years with a 5-year joint option to go to 25 years to site that solar farm there. It's under construction. It should be up and running by the fall. It'll provide just about 5 megawatts. We, as a city, have contracted with Blue Wave for a significant size power purchase agreement, which will actually provide the city savings on our own municipal electrical bills and will ensure that clean and renewable energy is in an amount equal to a significant percentage of our own use is credited on our bills. So we save money on our electric bills as a city, and we help to underwrite the cost of the field. And I say we, I mean that's where National Grid and the other power providers need to be, and that's all by state law that they have to help create, underwrite the cost of the clean and renewable energy. So this is a great project. There also was a community solar offering that the developer made to residents of Beverly, and I know people who don't have they don't have a rooftop that points south for enough hours in a day that they could put solar on their rooftop to save money, but they could do a contract with the solar developer to get credits on their own bills. It's like a mini power purchase agreement. So there's a lot there, and we're doing more solar. We're going to be doing solar on the roof and the parking lot of the new police station, and you take that together with the a geothermal system that we built into the ground at the police station for all of its heating and cooling needs. And we're trying to make that new station a net zero building, one that will be close to and hopefully eventually fully at having zero impact environmentally. In other words, all the power and the electricity would be provided through clean and renewable sources. There's a lot there. It's exciting.
And I know you as an individual have brought to the administration and to the city your personal view of conservation and use of renewable energy. And I think that one of your goals is to have the city, all of its electrical needs eventually in the future, I don't know if you have a date for that, to all come from renewable sources. Do you want to say anything about that, Mike?
Yeah, so we're all on a path towards, I say we, every city and town in the country, every city and town in the world, we all need to be on a path towards powering our society cleanly, right? So oil, coal, natural gas have been the norm for, I'm going to get it wrong, but over 200 years, right? So, and what was wonderful for a long time eventually became understood to have a negative impact on the environment and climate. So we need to transition to clean and renewable sources of energy. Nothing is without impact. And one of the things that, that I think a lot of us are trying to be mindful of is, what are the type of raw materials and resources needed to construct, these type of other sources. And we're all trying to be mindful of that. But clearly, solar, wind, geothermal, water, hydro, these type of energy sources are critical to our future. So yes, we're trying to make sure that Beverly, both as a municipal government and as a community at large, move in the direction as quickly as we possibly can of cleaning up our power structure, right? So right now, we pretty much, as a community at large, we burn fossil fuel for our transportation, for our buildings, both to electrify and heat and cool them, and to manage our waste stream, all waste streams. So those are the ways in which we need to find the ability to move very quickly and very effectively, both intentionally and quickly and permanently in the direction of clean and renewable energy to replace the fossil fuels that we've been burning for so long.
Now, you mentioned the new police station. So for our viewers, that's on Elliott Street, right in the front part of where the Cummings Center is. So tell us, how is that proceeding and when do you envision that opening?
Right. Yeah, it's under construction and things are going well. I think people are going to start to see a lot of up out of the ground progress. With any construction site like this, it's first what goes on under the ground and on the ground. And so the goal is that the police will move in by the end of next summer. So we're talking 2021, end of summer. That's our goal. We experienced a couple of delays due to COVID. First it was getting all the different work crews out there safely, and there's also some delays in the production of the steel. But we're doing well, and we're excited about it. I mean, look, the police have been operating out of the station that they have for coming on up to 90 years, and they probably outgrew it 50 years ago. So we recognize collectively, before I was Mayor Scanlon and other city leaders for a long time, that we had a lot of needs with our school facilities that needed to be met first, and then we needed to turn our attention quickly to the police station, which we have. And so, they've been operating in under 10,000 square feet between the current station and the Criminal Investigations Division and the Domestic Violence Unit, the Animal Control officers, all those who've been off-site that need to be under one roof. And so that we'll be building a roughly 32,000 square foot building that they'll be moving into. It'll include a combined dispatch center, which is currently, part of it is in the police station, part of it's in the fire station today. We'll be combining police and fire dispatch and putting it into the new station. We also are going to have a community meeting room that can seat 50 plus people. that'll be double as a training room for police. And we also, on the second floor of the building, will have a virtual training room that allows for a lot of online and what's the word, scenario type of training, which we do a lot of already. But to have that facility to allow for a lot of de-escalation training, a lot of how to deal with meeting difficult situations, working to de-escalate and avoid the use of force, understanding that when force is absolutely required, that there's a continuum of force. There's a lot of trainings that our police already undergo, and a lot more opportunity both for us locally and for other neighboring and regional police departments to take advantage. There's a lot there.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Now, Mike, let me ask you to make a comment about the Harborfront restaurant, the so-called McDonald's site. I know that recently the city asked the state to give them permission to do a home rule petition. And I don't know if the state is still in session now with their budget, or they've gone beyond the August or the July 31st deadline. Maybe you can explain
so
exactly
the legislature, let me just help you out with that. The legislature passed by unanimously, House and Senate unanimously passed the legislation. It's just awaiting the governor's signature. And I was trying to check on that earlier, but then I had to jump into this meeting.
Okay.
Too many things
Now,
in a day.
maybe for our viewers who aren't aware, what exactly is a home rule petition? What does that mean, and when would cities invoke that?
Yeah, home rule petitions run the gamut. We have effectively we are a state where city and town governments have a list of powers that were granted to them by the state, by the Commonwealth, as long as 400 years ago. And over time, those powers have kind of ebbed and flowed, but there are certain things that we can't do without the state government giving express approval. So that's an example of this. Now, the great thing is that Marty Bloom, the principal of the restaurant group, who owns Mission on the Bay in Swampscott, Mission Oak Grill in Newburyport, and a couple of restaurants in Boston. Marty's the principal of the group that want to develop the restaurant at our waterfront. They got their special permit from the planning board back before the holidays. They have since gotten their MIPA permit from the state and are working on their Chapter 91 license, which is close to final. And they're hoping to get construction started this year. This home rule petition was an extra step that the title insurance companies that were going to guarantee their financing wanted to see in place. Personally, I think we had everything in place we needed. The state and the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs have long had a project agreement in place for use of the property. That project agreement, going back nearly 20 years, has always prioritized, and in fact, the city's grant application for grant money to help buy the property always talked about a restaurant on the waterfront. And so there have been people who have opposed the restaurant for years, and many more people who have wanted the restaurant. And so we've worked through that process at the local level through a number of administrations, and here we sit. And so we have a restaurant that finally is almost completely permitted, and construction can start soon. And the goal is that it'll open by the late spring, summer of 2022. I can tell you that Mr. Bloom wanted to open in 2021, and the pandemic had really kind of knocked that opening date back. Understandably, he's committed. He knows how to run restaurants. He's done it for years and years. He knows how to succeed with them, and he's committed to Beverly. So, he saw the need to push it back in terms of an opening date. But we're excited that, that he's got the approvals that he needs, and we're very close to him being ready to start construction on the site. So,
very good. Well, Mike, we're almost out of time. Let me give you the last couple minutes here. Is there anything else that you want to say to our viewers? Any closing thoughts?
Oh gosh, sure. I feel like sometimes these days we just start the day, put our heads down, and go, and the day's over. And certainly there's so much. I'm not talking about just me. I'm talking about you and everybody who's watching. There's so much for us to try to understand and absorb and use that information and our understanding of it to decide on our actions. And I just want to thank everybody in Beverly. There has been so much new and different for people to understand and try to work with ever since the early part of the year when COVID started being a term, right? And so we're living in the time. It's a pandemic time. It's a time of a new virus. There's going to come a day when we hope very, very much, and I know that all the medical and scientific experts are working, so very hard to ensure that we develop strong treatments and that we develop effective vaccines. And so, I just appreciate all the thoughtfulness, all the kindness, all the patience that people have with each other. And if somebody gets a little momentary weakness with that, let's all try to be understanding of that, because we're all pulling together and trying to help our community through. So I just want to say that I really appreciate people's work on dealing with this and living with this. And last thing I want to say is, again, we're going to have concerts for the next several weeks on Thursday nights. It's not everything, but it's something. It's a way to be together in front of our own TVs and know that friends and neighbors are watching the same wonderful live music. And it's thanks to BevCam and our folks at our rec department for pulling it all together. So I just want to thank everybody for all we're doing here in Beverly right now.
Very good. Very well said, Your Honor. And I will tell our viewers that you've been watching City Scene with Mayor Mike Cahill. I'm your host, Walt Kosmowski. Thank you for watching.